A joint US-Mexican operation has taken down one of the most notorious child traffickers in the entire world, a lady known by the pseudonym La Diabla. Just a few days ago, La Diabla was picked up and arrested in Juarez, accused of selling newborn babies to American couples for $13,000 each. But it gets much, much worse. Because if you want to sell babies for tens of thousands of dollars each, those babies have to come from somewhere. And in this case, those babies were coming from poor and often resourceless pregnant women who were being lured out into the middle of nowhere and then having illegal C-sections performed on them. And often many of these women were literally having their organs harvested. Of course, these illegal C-sections and organ harvesting operations led to the death of most, if not all, of these mothers. And look, whenever I read a headline this sick, my immediate thought becomes, why is this happening? What would lead to something this disgusting, this terrible happening? And really, when you look at it, these children are only being sold for $13,600, which is significantly less than the average price of a domestic infant adoption in the United States. I feel like this is something we need to talk about. Because when you look at the big picture of adoption in the United States, like the history, but also the present, what La Diabla was doing was not actually all that unique. Yeah, the organ harvesting was unique. Yeah, the illegal C-sections were unique, and all the mothers dying was unique. But the practice of taking women to remote areas to try to isolate them and extract their children from them is still a commonly accepted practice in American adoptions today. I think there's a very good case to argue that adoption in the United States, the way it works, at least in the private marketplace today, is legalized human trafficking. Just Google Utah adoption, click on the news tab, and you will find all kinds of stories of pregnant people being targeted by aggressive ads, flown across state lines to places where they'll be more isolated and where these adoption agencies can provide goods and services to entice them into relinquishing their children. It's all a big business, and the children are the product. And look, I gotta be honest, this is what happens when you privatize your child welfare system and turn it into a human marketplace. Adoption agencies throughout the United States have spent the past century plus feeding into the demand for adoptable children. We're seeing that for every infant that becomes available for adoption in the United States, there are on average 45 people plus their spouses or whatever waiting to adopt these infants that become available. When the supply is microscopic and the demand is virtually infinite, prices go up, and so you end up seeing black markets develop. Don't get me wrong here. What La Diabla was doing is grotesque. It is unconscionable. But to me, selling kids is selling kids, whether it's illegal or legal. As Americans, we do not and should not have to accept this idea that in order to help children, we have to sell them. And we need to be honest with ourselves and open our eyes to the fact that many of these women want their children. They're not giving their kids away. They are victims of a much larger system that preys on their vulnerability to fulfill the demands of people who want to adopt children.